All right, so this is our first section in Unit 2. So Unit 2 is all about expressions and equations. So let's first learn about what an algebraic expression is. So an algebraic expression is an expression with integers, with integer constants, variables, and algebraic operations. Essentially, it's an equation without the equal something. So an example would be like 3x plus 5 or something along those lines. So it looks like an equation, but it's not quite like an equation. So the point of this lesson is to take sentences and to put them into something like this. Okay, and we can do that by using these phrases above. So if it says more than, or sum of, or increased by, or any of these, it means addition. Any of these, the difference of, decreased by, reduced by, all of that means subtraction. Twice, product, if it just says of, multiplied, times, that all means multiplication. Quotient, ratio, per, half of, or divided by, all means division. All right, so let's first talk about the steps to translating words into expressions. So the first thing we want to start with is identifying what part's the variable. So identifying what the variable is. And then you can use any letter. So remember, a variable is any letter. So you could use X, Y, or any letters of the alphabet. Okay, and our next step is to identify what operation is being used. So is it addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? And then last thing is just to write out expression as read in sentence. So let's look at this example right here. So it says the score is increased by 8 points. So the score is increased by 8 points. Okay, so which one do you think is our variable? Score, increased by, or 8 points? So score is our variable, and you could use whatever letter. In this case, I'm going to use S. And then increased by. I see increased by here. So that tells me it's addition. So increased by is addition. And then I have my 8 points. So my expression then, exactly as I read it, is the score is increased by 8 points. Okay, so that's what it would look like, and that's how you do it. So I have one more that I want to go through together, or two more, one more. And then I'll let you try some on your own. Okay. So 7 less than m. Sometimes it gives you the variable, so you don't have to come up with one, or sometimes it doesn't. In this case, if it's 7 less than m, less than we know is subtraction, but I want to take away 7 from m. So in this case, it's actually read. a little backwards. It's m minus 7 because it's 7 less than m. So we're subtracting that 7 from the m. So I want to jump to C, and it says the quotient of W and 10. You would write that as division. So in division, I would probably use a fraction bar. So I would use a fraction bar because we said this was division. And since W comes first, that's what goes in the numerator of the fraction, and 10 goes on the bottom or in the denominator. Okay, so whatever comes first out of these two, that's what goes on top. All right, so I want you to pause, and I want you to try B and D for me. So try the next two. All right, so remember, it doesn't matter what variable you use. So in this case, for B, I used n. So I did 17 plus n. For D, I wanted to use x because that's what you'll commonly see. But when we do 3 times x, it might look like this, 3xx. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't really make sense to me. So, because I don't know which one's my variable, which one's my operation. So anytime you have multiplication, you just write it as 3 times x. So you just write them right next to each other with no operation in between. And there's an implied multiplication in between there. Okay? So now we're going to kind of go the opposite direction. So now we're going to use the same words. All right, so we're going to use the same words, the same box, but now we are going to go the opposite direction. So we're going to be given an expression, and we're going to write a sentence using that. So the first thing we're going to do is to write how we want to write our variable out. So identify in words our variable, such as like a number or some number. And then you also want to choose your words for your operation. So choose words for operation. So like if it's division, you would choose either quotient of or ratio of or per. So you can choose from there. And then you write expression as seen. Okay, so let's look at this first one. We have x, we have plus, and then we have 12. So remember, your x is really a number. So a number, and then plus means addition, right? So you can use any of these. Because I started with a number, I would probably either use increased by or added to, just because of how we started the sentence. So I'm going to use increased by. So a number increased by, and whatever it's increased by, 12. So a number increased by 12 is probably what I would write. All right, so let's look at some of these examples. I'm going to do one more with you. So we have 9. If there's nothing in between, it's an implied multiplication. And then we have our y. So I would probably write 9 times a number. Okay? All right, so that's that. And now I want you to try B, C, and D. So I want you to try B, C, and D. So pause the video. Okay, so I asked you to do B, C, and D. Here's how I might have written B. So you could have had a different way. Just make sure your sentence makes grammatical sense or makes sense the way you're writing it. C and D, we're going to go over in class the next day. So check on those then.